Hey there, YouTube. Cheers. That's good. It's freezing cold outside, and I'm drinking something freezing cold, although the heat is on in the house, and it is quite toasty in here. Hope everyone is doing well. Today, it is February 20th, 2025. It's a little after 11 p.m. here in sunny Northwest Indiana. I normally I try to avoid talking politics here on YouTube. It's a hotbed issue, and I understand from both sides. There's Democrats, there's Republicans. I identify more as an independent. I am conservative in some of my views, and I am more liberal in other subjects. So neither Democrat or Republican really fit me. But let me just say this: I was not a huge fan of Joe Biden. I was not a huge fan of Kamala Harris, although I've heard a lot of good things about her from other people. Never was really my flavor. But with this new Trump administration, it is just it's chaos now. And what bothers me the most, and a lot bothers me, is the lack of people caring, especially the Republicans. Why one person is so feared by an entire political party. And this is something to remember. For many years, Donald Trump identified as a Democrat. I don't know when he supposedly made the switch, but he identified for a very long time as a Democrat. He was friends with the Clintons. But, it seems to me like Trump's always been more of an opportunist. He's going wherever it can benefit him. But I saw an interview today with Michael Steele, who was the former uh, chairman of the Republican National Committee or whatever, the RNC. I don't remember what that stands for. And he just talked about how a lot of people are just going on with their lives as if this isn't happening. I firmly believe, this is demonic behavior, and this is a real life coup attempt by this administration. But a lot of people who are Trump followers, dis- Trump is more like a deity to some people. It seems like, which is very dangerous. But he is trying to take over this country. He is the greatest threat to democracy right now. And how Musk somehow muscled his way in, I'm guessing with money, buying him off. One of the things that bothers me, and there's a lot that bothers me, I could probably make a few videos about this, and I have absolutely no idea what I was going to talk about when I clicked record. I'm just doing this off the cuff. There's a lot of things that bother me in this equation, but a lot of Trump followers in his cult are so anti-immigrant, but Musk is an African immigrant from South Africa. He's not from here. He couldn't even legally run for president, but yet he has these broad powers that is unprecedented and scary at the same time. And so many Republican politicians that can do something about this are either complicit or too afraid. I don't know what motivates them to allow this, but they are. And this indiscriminate firing of federal workers without a plan is extraordinarily dangerous. But one of the things that I want to talk about this, and I'll probably end up doing a part two video of this, but I work for a nonprofit here in Northwest Indiana, and although I wasn't a fan of Biden, there was some Biden legislation in 2022 called the Inflation Reduction Act. And this, there was $369 billion in this Inflation Reduction Act that was geared towards climate justice initiatives, renewable energy, and job training. And a lot of it was targeted to low income communities that were oftentimes disenfranchised. And so I work for a nonprofit, and what I do in my nonprofit job is I'm the director of our renewable energy initiative. And renewable energy, maybe I'll make another video about exactly what that is. But what I want to talk about now is that there were two grants last year, one called Solar for All, one called uh, Community Solar, I think it was. But in the Solar for All, there was a coalition of us in Northwest Indiana from Indianapolis all the way down here in Northwest Indiana. I live in Gary, Indiana, and this whole region. And so we submitted an application asking for $138 million. Now, there was a grand total of $8 billion available in funding through Solar for All. Our Indiana initiative was awarded $118 million. Of that $118 million, a grand total of, I believe it was $34 million, was coming directly here to Gary, Indiana. We partner with the city where I work for, Face CDC. We do partner with the city of Gary on some initiatives, but we didn't partner in this grant application. They were awarded, we were awarded through a different coalition. One of the things we want to do is create solar farms here in Northwest Indiana in an effort to promote renewable energy, more renewable energy usage as opposed to using fossil fuels, natural gas, uh, electricity, coal, things like that. And so, in that, there were $34 million earmarked specifically for Gary. Plus, there's about $6 million for the whole region for job training, to go to job training programs to help people to get trained in jobs related to the green energy, solar installation, solar maintenance, things like that. And I was a part of the committee that was for that was building the framework for that training. One of the things we wanted to do was really focus on people throughout Northwest Indiana who have recently been released from prison, that have served their time, but that want to be able to get free training for what could be a career and get yourself on the right path. There's one of the state prisons, Westville, is not very far outside of Gary. It's probably, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes away. So a lot of people that get out of Westville, they're just brought here to Gary. So we would have a lot of people in this area that quite possibly would qualify for these job training programs. And so the money was allocated by Congress. The funding was allocated. We were awarded. And for those who are not familiar with a federal grant, you have to jump through a lot of hoops when you get any federal funding. So we got less than what we asked for, so we had to redo our work plans and submit our work plans for every individual group within this coalition. We had to fill out lots of forms. We had to pass a lot of tests. And then we did all of those things. We submitted the work plans. The representative from the EPA who issued these grants, said, yep, that looks good. We'll approve it. Here's your contract. We signed it. The government uses a system called ASAP. That's one of the programs that Musk has hijacked. And so when you get federal funding like this, it was a total of $118 million. They're not just going to send you a check for $118 million. They put the money out of the government account into a third party account in a different bank, and then we as the coalition draw down the funds as needed. We have to submit a request, send in the invoices or whatever it is that we need to pay for to the administrator of the grant here. They vet it. If they say okay, they submit the request to the EPA. The EPA will then transmit the money to pay whatever it is that we need to pay for. So they still had, in theory, control of the money, even though the money no longer belonged to the government. This was all done in the previous administration. We finished our process. We were awarded this grant, I think maybe in March or April of last year. But by the time we did everything that we had to do, it was early January before we signed the contracts and made everything official. So what did they do? The Trump administration has essentially taken that money back. It's in a suspended state. It was there. They've suspended it, and so we can move forward in planning, but we can't purchase anything. And with this grant, it's a 5-year grant. We're almost at the end of year 1, so we have to start putting these projects together pretty soon to meet the requirements of the grant. But this government has taken it. That Inflation Reduction Act was very important, and I want to encourage everyone to go do the research yourself, because it not only included provisions for renewable energy matters that would help a lot of different communities. And understand this, that the Solar for All grant was funded, all 50 states received funding. So this was distributed equally. In fact, from what I've read, in terms of dollars, red states got more funding than blue states. Indiana's a red state. Red states got more funding through that Biden administration initiative than the blue states. So red states stand to gain more monetarily from this. He's taken it away, and we're thinking that this is going to require litigation. The problem is, with nonprofits, we typically don't have a lot of money. We're nonprofits. We're not in it for profits. We don't have, deep pockets. Not the smaller community-based nonprofits like where I work for. I'm not talking about Red Cross and some of the larger ones. They've got the money to do that. There are some nonprofit attorney organizations. Lawyers for Good Government is one that can help and offer legal advice, but this is going to take a long time, potentially. I want you all to go out and look at what the Inflation Reduction Act meant. That's $369 billion that was going back into the economy within the next few years. And this went beyond renewable energy. There were safeguards for people on Medicaid that would cap out-of-pocket expenses per month for insulin to, I think it was $35. There were some safeguards in place that allowed the government to be able to negotiate drug prices for Medicare and Medicaid recipients. There were some safeguards in there that helped to keep the subsidies in place on for the Affordable Care Act. My health insurance that I have is through the Affordable Care Act. It's not cheap because I have a decent job, by the grace of God. So I get a little bit of a break, but my health insurance is $753 a month for just me. It's vision care and health care. And I do have deductibles, but it's a decent policy with, I think it's Aetna, I want to say, Aetna/CVS. But there's a lot of safeguards in that Inflation Reduction Act. That's one of the things this administration is trying to erase, even though it's illegal, because this money was already allocated by Congress. Most of the funds were distributed. There's still some out there. There was the community change grant is what the other one was called. I said community solar. It was a community change grant that represented $6 billion in funding. We submitted an application for that in partnership with with the city of Gary. We did two applications, one with us as lead, one with them as lead, $20 million each to do a lot of great projects. We submitted our application first. It didn't get selected, but with the community change grant, if your application got rejected, you could meet with the EPA. They go over the application and explain what you did right versus what you did wrong, and then you can resubmit your application. There were so many applications resubmitted. They were supposed to make the selection by the end of December. Early January, we got a note that it was going to take several more weeks for them to be able to fund everything. And so, who knows if that's going to happen? That's some money still in there that had not been allocated yet. And so there were no contracts signed. It still should be awarded because it was still a legitimately legal funding opportunity appropriated by Congress. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But that's what this administration is doing, is essentially stealing money, billions of dollars, stealing billions of dollars in funding, in federal funding that was legally appropriated by Congress and properly distributed through these different federal agencies, vetted and approved, contract signed. It was a done deal. That's just some of the low things that this administration is doing. And so please look up for yourself the IRA Inflation Reduction Act. Go look at how much this would have helped. There was also safeguards in that to actually reduce the deficit. He's claiming he's looking for waste and fraud in this one program that he is, because it's Biden's name on it, because it was done during his administration. He's trying to completely erase that, even though it's illegal. This Inflation Reduction Act, because of how it was structured, would have reduced the deficit. It would have saved money. I'm going to stop my rant here because it's getting a little bit long. I'll probably come back and do a little bit more because there's just so much going on with this administration right now. And I really hope that people stand up, contact your elected officials, and demand that this stop. Now, the president can go through legal means, through Congress, through the Senate, and put forth spending plans that align with his own ideas, even though he represents us. Now, he can do that legally, and that's his right to do that. But what he is doing and how he's doing it is illegal, it's immoral, and from what we can see, it's a keystone presidency. There is no rhyme or reason. There appears to be no plan for any of this. It's just indiscriminate axing. It's unbelievable. The level of incompetence is unbelievable. And what's more scary is so many people still believe in him. They cannot see what is obviously in front of us. And that's scary. It's very scary. Now's not the time for apathy. I have a radio show here, and I also do radio, and I'll make another video about that and do the links to the radio station and all that other stuff some other time. But on my radio show earlier this week, I did talk about that, and I got some good feedback from listeners, and I was very glad about that. But we really got to stand up, folks. Please pay attention, read, see for yourself. I'm presenting information, but I'm saying go look it up for yourself. Thank you all for your time. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I pray that everyone is doing well. Let's keep those federal workers in prayer who are just indiscriminately losing their jobs, losing their health care. That's a big deal. And with these cuts in his, I forgot the term that he used. And I'm sorry, I know I said I was done before, but I'm a Baptist minister. I close sometimes 2, 3 times. It's just how I'm wired, I guess. But in the bill that he submitted for the budget, it was a 20% cut to Medicaid and I think Medicare. And all these unemployed people, not everybody may find a job quickly, so some of them may rely on Medicaid in order to get decent health care because you need health care in this country. And with cuts to it, and now all of these people who find themselves unemployed, that's it's. I believe that not only is our freedom at stake, but the stability of this country is at stake right now. This is a coup. They're trying to take over. They want to take our rights away. Let's not be apathetic, folks. I'm closing for real this time. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Don't give up hope. Keep on keeping on. I believe we can get through this. I believe God is still in control. God is allowing this to happen. It's up to us to be prayerful and ask and seek God and find out why. What is it that we need to do? What do we need to see or hear? Anyway, thank you all so much.